Alright, welcome to a Nightskyonline.info podcast about how to observe the Venus transit safely. It's a beautiful sunny autumn day. I've got the sun hat on. Makes it a bit difficult for you to see my face, but it's the only way I can sit here and see what I'm doing and look at the camera to check that the camera's pointed the right way. Observing the sun is very dangerous, let's make that very clear. I think almost everyone's been guilty of actually looking at the sun, however briefly, at some stage. Problem with doing that is if you do that, it actually exposes your eye to ultraviolet radiation. Over time, you end up getting cataracts from the damage caused by the ultraviolet radiation. So basically, it's not safe to look at the sun, full stop. That said, the transit's coming up, and it is actually looking at a planet going across the face of the sun. So how can we do that safely? There's three ways. Now, if you haven't left it too late, you can go to online, find a retailer which stocks what's called solar viewing glasses. My website sponsor, Extra Vision Australia, sells them. This is a pair I had left over from a partial solar eclipse I want to observe a number of years ago. So these actually are designed for looking at the sun safely, and what they contain is a filter material which reflects 100% of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun and virtually all of the visible wavelengths of light. So basically, if I put them on, look at the camera, I can't actually see anything except if I happen to point, then now look up at the sun, and what I can see is a beautiful image of the sun, lovely disk. Now I know there's a sunspot there, much larger than the Earth, but that's no, can't see anything at the moment. Now, a tip for you: if you do buy a pair of these, you need to be careful about how you store them. I have a Tupperware container here, which is actually wide enough to sort of keep them stored upright, so the lens is never actually pressing down onto the plastic. And that's important because the material's not that strong. If you get bits of dirt or dust on them, it gets rubbed in, then it'll make holes in the filter material. What you should do before you use them is actually always hold them up. I'm doing that now. I'm looking for any pinpricks of light. Okay, so that means no pinpricks of light, because even a tiny little bit of light, unfiltered light from sun, will contain enough UV radiation to do that damage. Okay, so that's the first way to observe the Venus transit safely. Now, I should point out something that I've done a bit of research, and there are people with good eyesight who have used these type of glasses to actually see Venus going across the sun at the last transit of Venus, which happened in 2004. They could barely see the dot of Venus. So basically, if you actually want to see Venus as a disk, this isn't an option. It's an option for saying that, yeah, maybe I saw something there, but you definitely won't see the disk. If you do buy them, as an aside, keep them for November's total solar eclipse or partial solar eclipse later this year. Very handy. Alright, now the next way of observing a transit of Venus safely is to use some sort of image projection method. You might have an old pair of binoculars lying around. I've got a pair here which unfortunately I dropped on the ground, and they're now out of alignment. I'd use an old pair because basically if you have the binoculars pointing at the sun for too long, you're going to cook your eyepieces. The heat of the sun will actually potentially risk cracking the glass in the eyepiece. Right, so what I've done, I'm going to turn this piece of cardboard around which I've attached. I've actually got a hole there for just one of the objective lenses. Right, and then I've used lots of sticky tape on the back to hold it in place. This is probably the most painful of the two projection methods, because it's actually very hard to hold the binocular steady, but I'll show you how it works. Now, you're going to end up with one image of the sun, and I'm going to pick up a piece of cardboard in a moment and show you what that looks like. A little tip, because you don't want to be looking at the sun to make sure the binoculars are pointing at the right spot. You want to do something like this, and I'm not sure if it's going to show up. There's actually a little hole just there, and so basically that's like a find escape. So I'm going to end up with two images of the sun on my white piece of paper, one from this hole and then a bigger, brighter, sharper one, and so that way, you know, you're ruling out the need to actually look through the binoculars at the sun. So under no circumstance do that. you will not enjoy the outcome of that. Alright, the third way of looking at the sun, and the second projection method, is to get a cheap telescope, and this one cost me $50 from a major retailer. I won't say where. Basically you just buy a cheap one. I've put a piece of cardboard in the front to act as a sun shield. Now turn it around, in fact I might even hold it up, and I've taken the right angle prism off and I've got the eyepiece so it's actually pointing straight through. So basically the image of the light from the sun will shine down the tube and then come out the eyepiece and point straight onto a piece of paper, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Again, I've put the hole in the front. I'll just turn that around, and just there, so I'm going to end up with two images of the sun. Again, this one here saves me actually looking through the telescope at all. When I'm aligning the telescope, I'm looking first of all for that dot of light on the piece of paper, and it gives me a guide to where the telescope is pointing. Right, so just turn that around so you can see it again. Very simple, $50 telescope, that's all you need. And as an aside, even with a telescope this cheap, you can see the rings of Saturn. Okay, let's go for the real thing. So if you can make this out on the video camera, there's my target dot. Now I just have to move the telescope around until I get the image of the sun on there. Alright, now I'm not going to be able to look up at the camera, you can see my head properly, but there is the image of the sun. It takes a bit of practice to actually hold the sun steady, and I'm wobbling quite a lot because I'm balanced here and I should be sitting on the ground. But that's how easy it is. So you can see you've got the two images. There's the dot, which is made by the pinhole in the cardboard. That gives us our target, so we don't have to look at the sun safely. And there is an image of the sun. Right, now you're not going to be able to pick it up on the camera, but I can actually see a sunspot at what to me is the top right hand side of the sun. So with that set up, the Venus transit will be quite obvious on the day. I don't have to rest my eyes at all. Okay, now the final method, or the second one I went through with the binoculars. So I'm just going to turn around, put the target dot at the top, model up so. Now this is actually quite hard to hold steady. I definitely recommend the cheap telescope with a tripod. And voila, we have an image of the sun. Now, if I move the cardboard back, of course I get a bigger image. And so we have that image of the sun. And once again, the Venus disk will be reasonably obvious on this image scale. Certainly much more easy to see than with the solar fielding glasses. Alright, I hope that's handy, being useful to you, and good luck, and I hope you have clear skies on June 5th or 6th, depending where you are on the Earth's surface.